entire United States. It is time for law and order, and I'm going to mention this straight, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it today. And then throughout the whole entire show, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the things that are happening in different states and how the COVID-19 is surging and some of the states having a second lockdown. And also, importantly, why kids should go back to school. So I'm going to start with, if you guys remember, Colin Kaepernick. He was the first man in the NFL field who took a knee during the Pledge of Allegiance. In terms of the black injustice, the injustice going on in the black community in the United States. So I'm going to give you guys a little reminder about Colin Kaepernick. He was the former San Francisco 49ers quarterback who took a knee as a protest against police brutality against Black America during the national anthem. Now the whole NFL is kneeling to the racial injustice against Black people. So the reason why I want to talk about this, I think there's a lot of contradiction going on with the whole kneeling down to the Pledge of Allegiance. And with all of that happening last few days ago, and I think you guys have seen it. In case you haven't seen it, the whole entire NFL team before the game took a knee before the national anthem for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, how that reminds me, I don't know if you guys remember the story of King Nebuchadnezzar, who put up a statue and he demanded everybody should bow knee to it. So now in today's society, we have people taking a knee and bowing down in the injustice system going on in the United States of America. And, it's definitely a must to fight for injustice and things that are going on. But to bow down, to that cause or to that situation, I believe is contradicting because, you only stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, for it is your nation, it is your country, and that you only bow to God. And that is why I'm not against it, but I'm also not for it. So in most couple of cases, I just wanted to, address that issue and making sure that everyone is like, you're taking that special knee bowing that we use to praise our God or to glorify our God into a society problem or an issue or something that can be solved. And even though some of it is also a demonstration of what happened to George Floyd and how Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck. In that cases, yes, it was horrifying. And George Floyd's family got the justice that they need. It was served. For any police that is in the system that is a bad cop, I believe the Americans have understood it now at this point that justice will be served and they will be held accountable. So now as we continue to demand more as the citizens of the United States, as far as defunding the police, and also continue to fight for the injustice that is going on in the United States. Now, the funny part I can say about that is you have a variety of different ethnic groups that are out protesting. And you have the white people, you have Spanish, you have Black, you have all race. You even have Ethiopians and other nationalities and ethnic groups that are protesting for their own reasons. Now, if you think about it, all of these protests that are going on and all these different ethnic groups that are going on are protesting for their own reason. George Floyd does with just one thing, and it opened the door for everything. And once that door was open, everybody went through their own doors to go ahead and protest for whatever they want to, or whatever the problem that may be going on in their personal life, or maybe they're just not satisfied with one thing and they want to continue on and for more. You know how they say, a human being is a complicated being, okay? Can never be satisfied, can never be pleased. So whenever one thing is done or one thing is served, there's always going to be more demand. There's always going to be more things to, cry about, whine about, and things like that. So with all of this chaos going on, and I'm going to move on to about all the riots that are going on to let you guys know, and the media mainstream are not talking about this, so you don't see it a lot. but I know it's roaming all over social media from some of the motivational speaker, commentator, agitators that are speaking on their behalf. So if you guys watch them, you guys would probably see a lot of the chaos that are going on, that the media mainstream is not doing this. But there is a small shift that I am starting to see with all these democratic states that are allowing all of this to happen. There's a small shift where people are starting to realize that why are they not doing anything? Why are they not putting law and order in place? Why are they not protecting our country or try to put it back in order? People are suffering. People are dying. Like, it totally become a whole different world. It's not the United States that we knew last year in 2019. This whole 2020 has been a year of destructions and a year of corruptions. And I'm going to mention a few little scriptures here. Romans 14:11. For the scriptures say, as surely as I live, said the Lord, every knee will bend to me and every tongue will declare allegiance to God. So any bowing, any kneeing, anything to get on the ground is only to God. But now America took it to a whole different level where now you are bowing to the injustice of the black people and also for the people that have died and things like that. That's what they're taking it to. And at the end of the day, none of that is going to change unless you vote, unless you change the leaders that are sitting in those chairs that are allowing those to happen. And I think the evidence is absolutely clear. It's very, very clear. As you see all these problems going on, and the mayors and the governors in the Democratic states are not doing anything about it. People like that who do not want to solve the problem or try to, bring law and order and justice in their state are allowing the opponent things to happen. So, has the violence rising in the streets of America, Portland, street of war of Gothic? Welcome to the Gothic city of Portland, Washington. Not only Portland, Seattle, and some of the other little cities there. Last week, as I mentioned this also on a couple of my videos, is people are no longer protesting. We have peaceful protests during the day, but then in the night, what happens? Oh, the whole Gothic city comes out. Everybody starts doing whatever they want. And if you go on YouTube and you look it up and you search chaos in Portland or Portland destructions or riot and looting in Portland, Washington, you will be able to see that people are partying in the streets. There's like this really weird loud music that is going on. They're setting up fire. There's like a huge cultic calf that they put up in gold. Now, what does that remind you guys of? During the time of Moses, when he freed the children of Israel out of Egypt, what did they do after he went to the mountain for a long time? People thought he wasn't going to come back, so there was no ruler. There was nobody they were going to follow, so they decided to do whatever they want. They created a gold calf, and they put that as their god. They worship it, and they did all that stuff. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what is happening in Portland, but that's pretty evidence enough that is the same symbol that we saw back in the day. And what happens to the other people who decided to put a calf as their god? When Moses came back, they were shocked and surprised. There were women just running around half naked and prostitute, and nobody cared about the children, and people were just doing whatever they want based in the latter days, okay? And so Moses drew a line, and he said, in this house we worship only the Lord. For those who do not want to worship the Lord, make your decision now. And then what happened? They all got slaughtered and killed after the line was drawn. That's similar to what is happening to Portland. That was the first thing that came in my mind when I first saw a lot of these that are happening. In Portland, they are setting buildings on fire, even the federal police. Donald Trump had to send out federal police to protect the federal department. the federal building for being burned down. And these people, if you look at it closely and pay attention, these are people who really don't have that much sense of life. They don't care. They're just out for the destruction. They want to destroy anything that comes out on their way. And I don't know, it could be a mental issue, since there's a lot of mental issues in this country as well. But mainly it's a huge psychological warfare. Americans are being manipulated to turn against their country, to turn against their leader as well. Now, the mayor of Portland did not want these federal police, these secret federal police, to come in. So Donald Trump went in whether he or she likes it or not. No, it's a he. Whether he likes it or not. He even went in the middle of the crowd and got tear gas just to experience what it was like. Now, that's got to be really painful as far as what I can say to that. But to continue on with the chaos that is happening there in Portland, we have also other violence that are rising in New York, Florida, and Chicago. Okay, it's pretty devastating. It's very sad. It's probably like one of the saddest moments for America to see such thing in the open, with all of these gun violence happening right now. Now, in Chicago, in a broad daylight, people were firing guns among each other. You could see regular citizens that are trying to run, that are trying to save their life, that are trying to protect themselves. Okay. And in the last few months since March, there has been innocent children that has been shot and killed by these gang violence, these criminals, okay? You have these states that have defunded the police. And now, even when you call the police in your neighborhood, it is delayed, they don't come on time. Many police officers called in sick. They did not show up to the job because the citizens have turned against them, okay? Now, that's what happened when you have one bad apple, just take over all the good apples. So, and I believe that's a good evidence and a sign now to the result of what is happening when you defund the police. The city will become a destruction, okay? In New York, even a little boy, he was only 11 years old, a little 11-year-old, okay, that was taken into the alley to be executed by these gang violence, okay? They took him there to be executed. Couple of little girls, they were killed. One girl was shot in the head in Chicago, okay? These are crimes that has been happening for decades and nothing has changed. The Black community has done nothing to condemn these violence, to condemn these crimes in their community, including the Latino community. The crime rate now went up, and it is soaring. It is skyrocketing. Little children are being killed in these cities, okay? And the mayors are not doing anything about it, okay? That's a really sad part. If you look at the destruction that happened just 2 days ago in Chicago, the shooting that took place in Chicago, okay? Whew, it reminds us of Africa, okay? In Africa, when one tribe is fighting the other tribe, it roams in the middle of the people, the regular citizens that are just having their normal life, and all of a sudden there's a gun violence, there's a shooting, somebody could be shot in front of you and be killed in front of you, okay? Now, in this gun shooting in Chicago, 14 were wounded in this gun shooting. They were wounded, okay? And I'm gonna bring out some of your favoritism of the Democratic Party, okay? When Obama was a president of the United States, during his entire 8 years, okay, what has he done to change some of these violence that are happening in the Black community? Nothing, okay? Same thing that is happening now with Joe Biden, who was the vice president of Obama at the time, who is not doing nothing. They're not speaking up on this, okay? And these are Democratic states. They're Democratic states. So it's gonna look really, really bad on the Democratic Party. I can say that much. It's gonna look bad on them, okay? They're not condemning the violence. They have done nothing to change the community. And Obama, that was his opportunity. He could have changed a lot of things in those communities. He could have put better school. He could have, I don't know, something that helps and better those cities. Chicago has been one of the #1 crime rates in New York. Miami, Florida has been one of the highest crime rates in New York. And majority of those are Black and Latin communities, and none of those are condemned, including Black Lives Matter. They are not condemning these situations, okay? And one thing, we can all be proud of, and the only thing America looked at was we had the first Black president in the United States, and that was huge. It was huge, including myself. I was celebrating. Even though I didn't vote that year, I've never voted. Probably this year will definitely be the first year I will vote because of all these destructions going on. I felt like none of it has really ever affected me. I've never seen America in this kind of side of ways. All I've seen is what I've known in the past. Why we come into this country, because it's such a great country. You could work, you could build your life, you could achieve your dream, you could become anything you want. But 2020 has showed all of us that United States of America can become just like any other third world countries where crimes are happening in the open. Okay? And that was one of the biggest victory to see Obama win the election to be the first Black president on the map. But the only downfall to that is that he didn't do anything to the Black community. He did not. And that is very sad. And most of these Democratic parties, of course, they're out to do whatever the liberal wants. These criminals that are causing destructions in their city, this is what they want. This is the life they know. This is the life they're used to. They're still human beings. They still deserve a second chance, okay? But it takes guidance. It takes guidance. There was a time in my life where living in North Minneapolis, the crimes that happened in North Minneapolis, okay? I was only maybe 9 years old or 8 or 7 years old. You can hear gunshots in the middle of the street, okay? And when I talked or interact with some of the people, okay, the most problem they had is they didn't have the right guidance in their life. They didn't have a father figure. They didn't have people who can guide them to go into to the right directions. So the only people they look up to and they go after is these gangs violence that tells them what to do, that are like the father figures to them, okay? They take up these children, they train them to be like them, and they end up becoming like them. That's how the crime rates really soar in these major cities, in these democratic city. Minnesota's a democratic state. I just realized that this year. kind of a bummer, but Minnesota's actually doing really good. It's doing really good, except that riot and the looting that we had where they burned down the whole entire Lake Street. Yeah. The mayor stood against it. The mayor stood against defunding the police. The mayor stood against the violence that took place. He really condemned it. But, these organizations, they're very well organized. They are prepared. They are just ready to run this country, is what it looks like. So that's based on the violence that are going on. So, and I'm gonna close this violence topic with one scripture, Romans 14:10. So why do you condemn another believer? Why do you look down on another believer? Remember, we all will stand before the judgment seat of God. So, America, it's kind of hard to talk about religion, but it's easy to talk about politics. It's hard to talk about the right things to do as a believer, but it's easy to fall for the lies of the politic, okay? As God said, we are not here to judge or condemn anyone, but we can correct, we can reform, we can, paralyze the scripture to know the truth. We have to know the difference between the truth and the lie. Now, if you go to the liberal, if you want to anger a liberal, tell them the truth. If you want to anger a conservative, tell them a lie. That's how the mindset has became for the United States, okay? The freedom has really taken to a whole different level. Yes, this is the land of free, is a land of, where you can do whatever you want to make yourself great, to be successful, okay? Not to be free to go burn down buildings, not to be free to go, use foul language or condemn other people or tell them that, oh, if you're not for us, you're against us, okay? That's what causes destruction. That's what causes war. And that's what America is leading to right now if we don't get law and order. So that's the update I want to give you guys about all these violence that are taking place right now currently. Like, this is just recently, and it has been going on since March until now, okay? And we need law and order. That's really much I could say to it. All right, we're gonna take a short break, and then I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the unemployment, how it is ending, and this is the last month, and then continue on about all of these reforms. Here it is. Okay, let's continue on talking about law and order and what needs to be done in order for everything to get back to in order. So law and order, you have law, which needs to be implemented so that everything can fall back in order. Law and order. So that's what needs to be done. So I'm going to talk about the unemployment. A lot of Americans are depending on the unemployment. Ever since the pandemic surged in, we had state locks down. Many Americans have lost their jobs and apply for unemployment. So a lot of Americans who are depending on the unemployment now is coming to an end on July 31st. So, and the congressmen are still deciding on if they're going to extend it and for how long. And I think so far they are planning on extending it until January. End of December, somewhere between December and February. So I'm going to get more detail on you guys for it next weekend for a lot of you that are worried. So as July 31st approached, many Americans are suffering financially. The end dates are near before August rent and mortgage payments that are due. Eviction protections include in earlier congressional packages, also coming to an end, rising in numbers of homelessness. So during this pandemic and the shutdown that we had, there was an eviction protection that was put in place. So you don't just get evicted by your landlord, or if you're late, you don't get charged with late fees or anything like that. So that eviction protection is ending very soon as well. The unemployment, the $600 that you get extra on unemployment every month is also coming to an end. So for a lot of the jobs that are probably not back, yet, for all these Americans to get back to work, they're probably still on lockdown. Many Americans right now are working at home, especially those that are like in offices, real estate, lawyers, and things like that. Majority of them are working at home. The only people who are mostly working outside of home are like, distribution centers, warehouse, and other manufacturer companies. Those are the most majority that are working outside of home. And with the COVID-19, so this was part of the lockdown to try to flatten the curve in the beginning, is so that everyone doesn't get sick at once. Now, in majority of the states, the COVID-19 is surging back up again. So some of the states are going back on lockdown, and they want to, that's one of the reasons they mandate face masks so that we don't go on a second lockdown. But like California is already on a second lockdown, and many businesses are really starting to lose their businesses. We're probably going to lose over 40% of businesses in the United States alone. And many are going to lose their jobs. We're probably going to have over millions of Americans who are going to be homeless. And we have some moms, single moms or families that are already crying about the evictions that are already going to take place. And these evictions are going to happen right away in the next week or two. So, and of course, living in a shelter and going to a homeless place is probably the only option they have right now. But the sad reality is that in shelters and homeless places, they're mostly crowded. You have numerous families that are in one place together, and that could rank up the COVID-19 as well. So it's easy to get affected. But however they're managing that, we don't know yet. But I'll try to collect more details for anybody who likes to know what the shelter systems are going to be like and how are they protecting their people while they stay in the shelter. And most majority of shelter places, they keep you there for about 30 days, between 30 days to 90 days. And if for some reason you're permanently homeless and you don't have a job and you have little children, they could extend that as well, depending on the situation. But for many Americans who are really depending on this unemployment are losing everything. Not only are they losing loved ones, but they are also losing their homes as well. The weekly 600 benefit is causing an estimate of 41% loss on many people income and rent, leaving them at a greater risk of an eviction. So as I mentioned, the evictions are starting to go out in the next few weeks or two, which is very unfortunate because a lot of these people that don't have jobs, it's a really sad end. It's a sad end for it. But if there are jobs hiring out there, I would really recommend you to work. Now, it's really hard to rely on the system, especially like being on food stamp, being on low-income housing, and cash assistance and all those things. If you're able to get a job, this is my only advice to any American citizen, especially minorities. Especially minorities from what I know, Don't rely on the system because when the system run out, what are you going to do? You need to have a second plan. You need to have some sort of income coming in because here in the United States, nothing is free. Water is not free. Food is not free. Your kids going to school is not free. Nothing is free, period. Even giving birth to your child is not free. So always have a plan. Do not rely and get comfortable on the system because this pandemic in this year of 2020, this is the reality of what happens when you rely on government system, okay? But it's too late for a lot of you guys that just got the memo. So now we hope that the president extend the unemployment. And while that's happening, I would say go out there, look for a job, take all the jobs that are available while you can, okay? All of this, there's a lot of propaganda behind it. There's a lot of agenda behind it. So if you don't take up any job that is available right now at the moment, it's going to be a life lost. And these politics are not going to care, especially if the Democrats take over the office. If they take over the office, the liberals are going to do whatever they want, the Antifas are going to do whatever they want, and the whole entire country is just going to go upside down. So, not only that, but the Democrat is definitely going to be run by these liberals. And not only that, there's going to be a lot of arrest. So if you try to go shoplift or steal anything, like AOC, one of the Congress lady that went viral a few days ago, who was saying that, it's not defunding the police that is causing all of these crimes. It's because some children are starving or families have no income. They have no way to feed their food. So they possibly go out and shoplift a small loaf of bread. That was pretty bizarre. So that's one of my advice for you. If there's a job opening, take up a job, especially in this time of the pandemic. You need whatever source of income that can come in to at least put table on your food or to keep a roof on your head if you can't get into any shelter. And also, about 11% of the adults are a household where there was either, sometimes or often, not enough to eat in the last 7 days in the survey found. So about 11% of the adults now in the United States have been going on days without food. Especially if they have young ones, they've been trying to give their food to their children. This is happening in America, you guys. This is happening in the USA. A country that the rest of the world will never thought that a child would go hungry. A world that nobody ever thought about, that the rest of the country would never thought you would go broke. It's happening right now. Okay? Adults are leaving themselves out on some of the meals so that they could feed their children. So that's what's happening. All right. With that being said, eviction hitting hard on the American people. Over 40% of them are Blacks and Latino. And the rest of the percentage comes from the poor, white, and the minorities. There's always a backslash and a sad reality to the Black community and the Latino. So whenever they're out there protesting and try to create justice and inequality, it seems like it goes 3 steps back. Okay. That's one of the sad things that is happening in this country. So basically, majority of them, a lot of them don't have jobs. And they are also the highest percentage in COVID-19 cases, and also the highest percent of COVID death, and also the highest percentage of poverty, and also the highest percentage of violence and crimes. Why are we not addressing these things? You know, these are the problems that continue to run on and on and on for many years and many decades. Okay, and it's almost like, when will there be an end to it? Okay, it's pretty devastating. Okay, Latinos and Black community is always a higher percentage of anything negative, basically. And of course, some white people, which are like the poor white people that lives in trailer homes or low-income housings, like apartments. Most of those suburbans or homeowners, they're pretty good, but they're still getting by. Whatever finance that you make is equal to your lifestyle. So if you have a really high-end lifestyle, most likely you could end up in being stressed out or depressed about how are you going to pay all these high bills, okay? So some of those rich people are actually reducing down. Like if you live in a big mansion, they're moving into a condo. If you live in a condo, they're moving into an apartment. So it's a reduction. But most of the poverty line people is hitting them hard. And it's hitting them just like any other third world countries. Where if you guys remember all of those ads that you see where, feed a child, like in Yemen, in Syria, in Ethiopia. Those are like the countries that were mostly advertised in famine and poverty and hunger and no income and people just sleeping in hunts and these little things. They don't have anything to eat. That's America right now. That's what's happening in a lot of these places. Now I'm going to bring up COVID-19. So COVID-19, we're still on the first wave. So the first wave is not over yet. And if you guys remember all the guidelines that were brought up in the past where, an extreme heat does not spread COVID-19 based from the World Health Organization and the CDC guidelines, well, all that is becoming a lie, big lie. Today was literally almost 100 degrees. Last few weeks ago, it was almost 100 degrees. And the cases are surging up really high. Now, the mortality rate is low, which is really good. And on the rating and the data, United States is actually doing a lot better than Brazil, because Brazil is hit really bad. It is worse, okay? And some of the people are saying, arguing with the Donald Trump and things like that about how United States is not handling COVID-19 well, is not doing a really good job of taking care of its people. Like people are dying left and right. Have you guys heard Brazil? Brazil is hit hard. Now, remember when you guys probably heard about Italy? Italy was hit really hard, like to the point people had to choose life and death. Okay, so here in the United States, I know everything goes state by state, but if you separate them by countries, the 4 states that mainly have the highest cases, if you separate them by countries, that are like New York, is Florida, California, and I forgot the other one, but I'll bring it up in a moment. Florida is being hit really hard. California now went above New York. So, but the mortality rate is low right now for the moment. So we don't know if that's going to increase or that's just going to go skyrocketing like what we saw in New York. New York, we had 700 people dying a day. That's how bad it was. But in cases like California and Florida and those other states, the mortality rate is pretty low. So we have mostly about less than 100, less than 200. So, but the cases are about 12,000 a day in Florida. Oh yeah, Texas is the other one. Texas is also really hitting up to those 4 states. So those 4 states have a really high numbers of cases, around 400,000 total cases. But as far as the death rate is really low, so which is good. And I think Corona took away all the people that are really wanted. Now it's just all the symptomatic people and all the people that are testing. America has one of the highest testing going on. They're testing everybody. Even if you don't feel sick or you don't have symptoms or anything like that, but you go in for a test and you end up having COVID and you're asymptomatic, you're counted in the case as well. So America has the highest cases, majority of them because of the testing. The rest of the world that are mostly testing, in a lot of these countries, they're testing, but they're only testing when somebody is really critically sick or they come to the hospital. Where here, you yourself, you can go to a testing station, you can go to a center and get tested. So almost all states are mandating face masks now, including Minnesota. So Minnesota just put on their mandatory law to wear face masks yesterday, the 25th. So anywhere you go outside, you have to wear a face mask. The 3 highest COVID cases are going to the second lockdown. California is on a second lockdown. Florida is going on a second lockdown, and Texas are going on a second lockdown. And lockdown is not fun because you're losing everything. You're losing a lot. The country isn't keeping up with the virus. So that's basically what we're seeing. But ever since the Spanish flu, it has been over 100 years since we had a pandemic. This is a whole new generation, a whole different human beings who have never experienced a pandemic. Where we had SARS and MERS that recently hit in the last 20 years ago or 50 years ago, where some of the people were alive and they experienced it. They knew how to handle the pandemic and went by their strict rules. But here in America, because you have freedom, you have the freedom and your own will, this is like the first year now. A lot of things are being mandated where you have to wear a face mask. Law and order have to be in place. Federal agency have to go in to calm down some of the states. And many American citizens are freaking out and fighting over a lot of these things because they're not used to it. It's unusual. It's unlike America, you know? And you can't blame them, of course. You know, it's like telling a child that you can't have candy anymore when they've been eating candies all their whole life. That's pretty much what is going on here. Now I'm going to bring out one of the most controversial topics. I did mention a little bit about it last week on my talk show, which is about kids going back to school. We're only a couple of weeks away from going back to school, and we'll see where some of the states are as far as their decisions, and also whether the kids should get back to school or not, and what are some of the safety implements that they're doing. We're going to take a short break. second short break. Back in order. I know I said a lot in case you missed the first 30 minutes of our show. We covered a lot on the crimes and the violence that are happening right now in our country, and also why law and order is very much needed at this time, and also some of the states that are going on a second lockdown right now because of COVID-19. We're still on the first wave. The first wave has not gone anywhere. Can't imagine what fall is going to be like. But now we're going to talk about school. Okay, kids going back to school. We have some parents that don't want to send their kids back to school because of COVID-19. There's that fear where, what if my kid get affected? What if they get sick? What if I end up losing them? Also, the teachers having that same fear as well, where the older ones have a much more higher chance of getting sick and not being able to make it in this life. So those are a lot of fears that are going on, okay? But as Trump spoke on this a lot and said school needs to be back open, I totally agree with him. School should be back open. Of course, there's safety guidelines that needs to be done, that needs to be implemented, whether it's checking their temperatures at the door or them wearing face masks in the classrooms, which a lot of kids are going to be uncomfortable doing that. But it's something new that they have to learn and get by through the whole entire school year. And also, some of the kids are having podcasts. So some of the students, they have their own pod, and they could be in it. I don't know for sure if the pods are in school or it's at home. But it's so that you are separated from other students. Some of the safety guidelines, of course, social distancing is one of the big things that has been mentioned so many times. Some of the schools are setting up their desks where you have desks that are 6 feet apart from each other, which is good. So as long as an American citizens to follow all of those guidelines and those strategies, kids should go back to school. Kids have the lowest rate of, or they have the highest immunity to be able to control COVID-19. So as we mostly seen in a lot of cases, the people that are getting hit hard, that are dying, are the elder people. And then you have the middle class people who are getting hit right now, like between 30 to 45, or no, 20 to 45. They are the middle people that are being affected right now. And a lot of them are asymptomatic. They may get really sick or get in a critical situation, but the death mortality rate is very low. And then the students that you have between the ages of, I believe, 11 or 12 until 18, they can pass or transmit the virus as much as an adult, but they have a really good mortality rate. Now, the kids that are younger than 11 years old, starting from K to 11 years old, they have a really good immune system of handling the virus. But kids who are already sick and have underlying issues, I think those kids should be kept home. Those are the kids that should be schooled at home, especially, you know your child as a mother or as a parent, you know your child. So if your child has diabetes or cancer or leukemia or any underlying ill or sicknesses, they should stay home and be homeschooled at home. But there's also a lot of kids with disability that need school as well. So all of this decision is really up to the parent. Some states are giving the parents an option to have their kids be in school and also to be outside of school. So I'm going to break those down in details a little bit, but right now let me go ahead and start with like kids with disability. They have an accessibility and also ways and how other people work with them. And a lot of parents do not do much of those with their disabled children, but they have like, I don't know, a staff member that work with them, or mostly the school the school counselors or the school staffs or their teachers that work specifically with these students. And I don't know how these kids with disability are really handling the lockdown right now or staying at home, imagining a whole entire year being at home. Some of them really need that guidance and those essential staffing that they usually get when they're at school. So that's one of the important reasons why they should go to school. But of course, the parent, if they're able to, do all of that, which a lot of parents, we are tied with jobs. So you're trying to be in two places at once. You're trying to be at work, you're trying to be with your children at home, and you're trying to be the teacher for them as well. We're at way too many places at once, okay? But of course, if you have two parents in the household, it's even a more plus because the two can swap and one can go to work while the other one stays at home and school them and, do their staffing, homework, all of that stuff they need to do. And then later on, they swap, the other parent come home, cook, make dinner, whatever works. So whatever their agreement is. But in most single families household or people that are extremely busy who don't have, these children, especially in the poverty where you can't even afford a private staffing member that can work with your child at home. So there's a huge effect to that. And also for like regular kids, high schoolers who are not used to being at home. And this year they had to experience being at home and facing your mom and dad and dealing with some of the things that you never even want to see or listen to your parents, but now you have no choice but listen to your parents, get to know your parents a little more, be the child, and putting the house back in order or putting the obedience back in order. Where in some of the kids, that are facing, abuse and missing their friends, and also that are going through stress and depressed. There are some children in the poor community that are committing suicide as well because they don't have the things that they need to stay at home, like lack of computer, technology, Wi-Fi, especially with all of these job loss and also these shutdown and parents being able to lose their home. I can't imagine what life is going to be like with these children in the next rest of the school year. So, and also having the food delivery come to home because they can't go to school. For how long is that going to last? Are they going to continue to do that when the school open until the end of the school year if they stay at home? So going to school is very essential for them. These kids need their friends. They need their social life. They need to hang out with their significant others, Of course, if you have a lot of cousins or, you're able to do a play time with your friends or go to your friend's house, those are good, okay? For example, I have a 12-year-old. So my 12-year-old has a cousin who is around his age. So they spend time together, they play outside, they ride bikes, so everything is fine with them. Him staying at home doesn't really affect him as much as it is. But I asked him this question, and I said, why do you feel like you should go back to school and why going back to school is important? And this rang the bell. In school, they're able to ask the teachers questions. They're able to focus more. They're able to understand the concept, especially math. I struggled with math with my kid, okay, when I was homeschooling my kid during the outbreak. And we're still in outbreak. And because I don't remember math as I used to, I finished math way early in my high school days. And the math that the sixth graders are doing right now, it's just far too complicated than what I used to remember. So I was not able to answer some of those questions. So, unless you have a parent who is like a chemist or a physic or who pretty much work in those fields and that's their major, that's their career, big plus, But a lot of the parents, of course, there's a lot of subjects we do struggle with. So we're trying to help our child, and they really need that guidance, and we're not able to give it to them fully. Unlike a teacher, it is their job. It's the teacher's job to teach them the instructions of math, the instructions of one subject I'm really good at is history, American history, world history. I can homeschool my kid all day on that, and hopefully he would get a straight A. But when it comes to math, I would be scared for his future. So that's some of the struggles that are going on with kids trying to teach their children, and also the children's needing that contact with their teacher to be able to, ask questions and do better. And they don't fall behind on homeworks either. Now with homeschool, it's a lot more stressful because you're trying to catch them up on their homework. You have all of these apps, maybe like 5 to 8 apps, especially high schoolers and middle schoolers. They have so many apps that you have to follow through, their homework list and the submission for their homeworks and things like that. Now, my experience as a parent, for what I went through, I would rather have my kid go back to school. And them going back to school, I mean, they've survived it so far to this point. So far, they're really healthy kids. They have not attracted COVID-19, or if they do or they have it, maybe they're asymptomatic, I don't know. And you just got to teach them and prepare them for school, and teach them to wear face masks, teach them to check their temperature, if you need to every day. And there's a saying, fear is a distraction to solution, okay? So if you're holding your kids back out of fear, then the outcome of it is probably going to be more complicated. And, as long as every parent knows what they're doing 100%, you'd rather have your kids at home, you're there for them 100%, you're going to make sure that they catch up in school and all that stuff. Awesome. Some kids, they are homeschooled for most of their life until they graduate. So, some of them could do it, but majority of the parents, the households, especially those in poverty that are trying to work and trying to make ends meet and pay their bills, it's almost impossible to be a teacher, be a parent, and be an employee. All of that at once. So, especially for those people, kids should go back to school. Better yet, maybe they'll have the option. You'll have option number 1. You can fully have your kid be at school and homeschool them. Option number 2, they can fully be at school and go to school. And then option number 3, what would be option number 3? Maybe half and half. Well, half and half doesn't make sense. Like, some of the states are arguing that maybe some of the kids should go to school 3 days a week, or they're gonna split the classes in a half, where you have morning students and then you have the afternoon students. How complicating is that gonna be? That's complicating things. It's so complicated. Because them going to school 3 days a week and not having the rest of the week, they're still being exposed to COVID. Also, them having a half-day school, they're going to need more bus drivers. That's really all I can say. They're going to need a lot of bus drivers, because you're picking up the morning kids up, and then you're dropping them off at noon, and then picking up the afternoon kids, and then dropping them off in the evening. It's a lot of transportation. And I mean, especially all different classes. Just imagine if you have like a 6th grader, and then you have a 2nd grader, and then maybe the 2nd grader goes to school in the morning, and then the 6th grader go to school in the afternoon. Like, how are you going to commute that? You're going to go in the morning, you're going to go in the afternoon, you're going to go back in the afternoon, and then you're going to come back in the evening. It's just all complicated. So unless they're only going 3 days a week to school, and then that's it, the rest of the 2 days, they don't have homework, they don't have anything like that. Or, I mean, if they have homework, that's fine, they could do it. Then it would make more sense. Or if they're only, I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. You guys can comment on this video below and, place your opinion. But I strongly believe kids should go back to school. So now, one last thing that I'm going to mention, according to all of this pandemic and things going on, why we need Trump for the 2nd term. So I believe Trump is the only president right now at the moment that can really put this country back into place. Okay. Even though many hate Trump's, okay, but I realized that he is mostly hated by the things he say and his personality, not by what he has done. So even when he holds a press release conference and all of the interviews he has been doing, last week I've been watching all of his interviews, and I start to have an idea that, you know, everything he's saying makes sense. It really makes sense. If you really listen to the whole entire interview, even somewhere like an hour, or his speech, they totally make sense. One, he is like a storyteller. You know, he likes to tell his experience, and at the same time, kind of like in a sarcastic but comedy way. Okay, that's Donald Trump. That's his personality. That's his character. And then also, you know, some of the things that he said. Like I said earlier, tell a conservative, if you want to anger a conservative, tell them a lie. If you want to anger a liberal, tell them the truth. So majority of the people that really hate this president, of course, is the component other end, the Democrat liberals. Okay? They hate this president because they focus on what he say and not what he has done. Okay. Now God said, it's not what goes in your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. Okay. There's a truth just to that. And but if you focus too much on what he say, then all the rest of the actions don't matter and they all goes dismissed. Okay. Now, even things that came out of his mouth and how the media carry it out, there's something that the world needs to know, that the media mainstream, okay, and this is a fact, okay, this is a real fact. The media mainstream will only talk about what will bring fear, what will cause their rating to go up, and also what will bring them on top. It's a competition. Any business and entrepreneur world is all competition. One business is always going to try to be better than the other. The one corporate is always going to try to be better than the other. That's the media mainstream. They are a different media outlets that are competing with each other to be number one. Fox News is now being known as one of the number one longest news television media that is out there. Okay, CNN. CNN is a very popular news channel to most African communities that I know, minorities, even in Arabia and those other countries. They watch CNN a lot. And CNN is mostly lies. Everything that is there is mostly lies. You can't believe everything that is in CNN. As I've been watching some of the interviews with even some of the people who are actually speaking on truth, okay, they get cut off. Okay, and one of the main hosts that's there, you know, they talk over their guests, and that's something no media should do. Anybody has a story. Anybody has an opinion. Anybody has an advice. If somebody advises you or tells you something, you don't have to take it, you know, but you don't have to condemn it either. You can shut off your TV and not listen to it at all. Or listen to it because you might think on it later, okay? Or you may find that, you know, they're telling something. Maybe I thought of it all wrong. Maybe they were right, okay? Media mainstream is a competition. Now, when Donald Trump says that all Mexicans are rapists and criminals, that's what the media is telling you. The media is telling you that all Mexicans are rapists and criminals, okay? But Donald Trump says they are sending us their worst. They are sending us criminals, okay? He specified it there. It was very specific. If you watch one of his interviews, especially right around the election before he took term into office 3 years ago, one of his speech, if you listen to it, there's nowhere that it says all Mexicans are racist. But guess what? All the Mexicans and the Latinos ran away with it because that's what they heard from the mainstream media and decided to hate Trump for it. But get what he did. He just passed DACA. All the illegal children that came through DACA are to become an American citizens. He just signed that legislation about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay, he's been talking about it. So, and nobody's paying attention to that. Nobody's paying attention to the action of what he did. Okay, now the illegal ones are to be sent back across the wall so that they can go through the same process that everyone else goes through, including Africa, to enter United States legally. That's what he said, okay? He's just not gonna allow any illegal climbing the wall, trying to get into the country, and also contributing some of their terrorist or act or whatever into the United States. Now that wall that he did was a great thing, okay? Mexican border is the only border to cross into the United States. If the ocean was not as deep or as wide as it is, the African countries and the Arabian countries and the terrorist groups and the extreme groups would have all come swimming into this country. It would have been that easy. But because Mexican border is our neighbor country and there's a wall there, this is to block out anybody coming in illegally. They would have to go through the process and come into the country legally, okay? That's exactly what he said, all right? And the other thing that is happening in that border as well, okay? All of that email leaked by Hillary Clinton, our child sex trafficking, Cage. There's a movie coming out called Cage. If you guys haven't watched that, it really explains a lot of things that are happening in the dark that you don't know, okay? And a lot of these Democratic Party are also involved into those trafficking, okay? It's all business. It's all business to make money. Whatever they're going to get to build their wealth, to increase their wealth, that's what they're going to focus on. They're not going to care about the people later. You go ahead and destroy your community, destroy your businesses. It's on you. That's what's going to happen. So, but Trump is the only one who has been speaking so much on making the lives of the people in the United States better, okay? Now, I'm gonna get to the Africans, okay? So when Donald Trump called African countries shithole, nobody took that lightly, and I know that very well. Now, many Africans just kind of sweep them off ever since then. I talked to a couple of people, and they don't listen to what Trump says, you know? No. They took the word and it closed all the doors and the actions of what he has done, okay? And the truth of the matter is, many African countries, they have bad leadership, okay? They have bad leadership. So the people in Africa are suffering majority of the time. They are suffering. Nobody cares if they're starving. Nobody cares if they die in the middle of the street. Nobody cares if the next village get burned down by the military. Nobody cares. The leaders in Africa only cares about their wealth, just like any other politic in the world. They only care about their wealth. They only care about their money. They only care about sending their children abroad. And of course, have you guys seen from the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party? Yeah, thank you to Donald Trump on that, because he just abandoned any communist leader, okay, from traveling into the United States. That is banned, because most of them are bringing their children here. They're bringing their family members here. They are also setting up different banks account to secure their money, because they know that here we respect privacy and your stuff will not be touched. Okay. So that's. But people ran away with the comment he made. So. But I think he does have a personality of just saying things for what it is. Like, he say it for what it is. However you want to take it later is up to you. You want to take it personal, you want to, whatever, it's totally up to you, But don't go out and be angry and destroying innocent lives, killing innocent people in a name of selfishness or greed, or in the name of, I don't like Trump. So, and I'm going to mention some of the things that Donald Trump did that I believe had really reformed this country. Only in the last 3 years that he has been in the office. Only 3 years, okay? So, Now I know we're getting to the end of our show. So the employment and job. Almost 4 million jobs were created since the election. That's why you see signs in the street, hiring, 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 okay? Trump did that. More Americans are now employed more than ever, record in our history. There was a lot of people on the system, food stamp, all of that stuff, but Trump dropped that to a very low rate. Many people are employed, okay? And many minorities, homes, Blacks, Asian communities are now working at jobs that pay higher. Minimum wage went up. If you guys remember, what was the minimum wage 4 years ago? It was like $7, $9, but now it went up to $15 and now going up to $17. Like, these companies are booming. The jobs are booming. Well, this was all before the China coronavirus came in. I'm going to start calling it that way because that's what he called it, China virus. Chinese don't like him because he called it China virus. But it came from China. Whether it came from the lab, that's a bio attack. That's a threat to the whole entire humanity, okay? But if it came from the nature, then maybe it would have been a different story. The Hispanic American unemployment is the lowest rate ever recorded. So the Asian American unemployment recently achieved the lowest rate ever recorded. Women's unemployment recently reached the lowest rate as well. And the youth unemployment, Americans without a high school diploma also have the lowest rate of unemployment. And we're back in the days, if you didn't have a diploma, you would have to take your GED in order to even get into a job. But now it's not like that anymore. The healthcare, he's planning on getting rid of Obamacare completely and replacing it for something more affordable healthcare options for Americans through Association Health Plan and short-term duration health plan. I like that better because Obamacare, you have to prepaid thousands and thousands of dollars. If you don't pay or you don't have any healthcare throughout the whole entire year, they high rock tax you. So, and also for gas, if you guys have seen gas, ever since Trump took the office, the gas went down to like under $2. And he also has, bought a lot of the oil to also save our gas and to keep our gas price down. And not only that, moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. So these are just some of the few things Donald Trump has done. There's a list of many other things he has done, and I'm very proud of how much he has done in only 3 years. If you could, me personally, I see the effect, I felt the effect. Previous years, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Now where I can only work 1 job and make enough money to be stable and things like that. So those are some of the wonderful things he has done as well as a president. And I think that's why he deserved to have the second term in the office. Despite all that he said, we all have personalities and characters where we can say things in a very sarcastic way. But I believe he's a very sarcastic president, but he meant well for the American people. He really meant well. So if you haven't seen any of his press briefing or any of his or the things that he said, his word stays the same. He does not change. You know what they said? A lie changes consistently, but a truth stayed the same. So if he said Mexicans are criminals, the ones that are coming in, he meant it. They're criminals. And if he said African countries are shithole countries, they have shitty leaders. And also if he had said China virus, the virus came from China. So, and yeah. Anyway, that's all the update I want to give to you all. But other than that, you have your own will, you have your freedom. You can vote for whoever you want. If you want Joe Biden to run your life in the next presidential election, go for it. If you want Donald Trump to be the next president, I think this will definitely be better for the United States of America, is Donald Trump to be our next president. But if it ends up being Joe Biden, I am preparing myself so that I can make sure I stay on top of my life, because who knows what's going to happen with Joe Biden. I don't even know what to expect, honestly. There's not a lot that Joe Biden put out there. But other than that, right now, currently in the United States of America, we need law and order. And that's my message to you all. So I hope you watch this from the beginning all the way to the end. Share it. Comment if you have any questions, or if there's anything I said that you don't agree with. Make your comment. Okay, I will look into it. I will look over it. And any other topic, I will bring it up on the next show. Have a good night.